I think about this day probably every day or every other day. Originally, they thought it was a small plane and it was an accident, and that I wasn't in the office long. And I remember looking up at the television and seeing the second plane come in. And I went, wait, where's that? And the second plane hit the second tower. And that's when everyone knew it wasn't an accident anymore.
I think it is essential to tell young people and this next generation that has no lived memory of 9/11 that as important as it is to remember the events of 9/11 and to commemorate the lives of innocent people who were killed, that it is equally essential that we remember how we responded. This country and actually the world community came together in a combination of shared grief and shock, but also unity and compassion and empathy. Service to others and to community and to nation were very much privileged in that moment in time, caring for one another. And there was a sense of hope that renewal was possible even in the face of such enormous destruction and unimaginable loss. I think so often people think of history as this objective narrative, right? And in fact, history is simply the compilation of human experience. So at this museum, we try to teach history, I always say, from a human perspective. It isn't a historian's analysis of what happened. It is the human experience of that moment that we all knew at the time was history happening in front of us. What you hear from people when they share a remembrance of a loved one is not the sadness of the loss. It's what they loved about the person that's no longer here.